This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Mexican authorities promise probe into train accident that killed 23 people. The Democratic Republic of Congo begins trial for new COVID-19 drug. And as India's coronavirus cases soar past 20 million, authorities say oxygen still not enough. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe, and joining me in studio with the business headlines is Uche.
Thank you, Peninah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. South African motorists looking forward to a fuel price drop boosted by a stronger rand. And a Kenyan innovator creates a hydro power plant from scrap material. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. Mexican authorities say there will be a full investigation into the cause of Monday night's metro disaster in the capital. At least 23 people were killed when an overpass collapsed and a train plunged onto a busy road below. Rescue operations are continuing. Alisdair Baverstock has the details.
Well, it has not been a peaceful night here in Mexico City. All across the capital, we've been hearing sirens, not only from ambulances, but also from the fire brigade and also military, who are also there at the scene of the wreckage, along with a great deal of residents who have rushed to the scene immediately following these events to try to search for their own loved ones. Of course, it isn't only people who on the train who have been affected. Indeed, cars and pedestrians around the site of where this train bridge has crashed over a main also present. The president did little more than express his own condolences, but the Mexico City mayor, Claudia Sheinbaum, has said that a full inquiry will be conducted into this, and that may end up hurting this current federal government, given that the Mexico City mayor, during the time that this line was constructed in 2012, it was Marcelo Ebrard. He is currently the country's foreign secretary on the federal level. So he has said that he will put himself at the full disposition of the authorities of the investigation in order to help as much as he can. But for the moment, that inquiry is still in the distant future. As for the moment, the current situation is about saving lives.
India's health ministry says the number of coronavirus infections has surged past 20 million. India's Premier League cricket tournament has been suspended indefinitely amid the outbreak. The local government of the capital city, Delhi, has asked the army to help with logistics and run COVID-19 care facilities and ICUs. The opposition Congress party has demanded a nationwide lockdown to curb the new wave. Local media say 20 flights have arrived with foreign aid, but a large number of oxygen concentrators as well as medicines used for coronavirus treatment have been stuck at customs for a week. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Guinea have begun recruiting volunteers to test a new COVID-19 drug for treating patients with mild to moderate forms of coronavirus. The study, known as Antikov, is reported to be the largest clinical trial in Africa for COVID-19 treatments. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The Antikov study is a drug trial that was launched in Africa last September. It focuses on using cheap drugs to keep patients with mild to moderate symptoms of COVID-19 out of hospital. Researchers in the DRC and Guinea have started recruiting participants for the trial. The DRC has already enrolled more than 150 patients. Other African countries like Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Ethiopia and Kenya are also expected to join in the trial. The health experts will test a combination of two drugs to try and stop the replication of the virus. Both drugs, nitazoxanide and cyclosonide, are already commercially available and will be affordable and easy to administer if shown to be effective against COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on the economy and healthcare systems of many African countries. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Tanzania has issued a new COVID-19 travel advisory that is aimed at controlling the spread of coronavirus. Travelers coming from countries that have recorded cases of new coronavirus variants will be required to quarantine for 14 days upon arrival. CGTN's Daniel Kejo has more.
A health ministry statement says that all travelers, whether foreign or returning residents, should present a negative COVID-19 test upon arrival. And everyone arriving from countries with a new COVID-19 variant, based on WHO listings, will face a rapid test at the point of entry, followed by 14 days mandatory quarantine at their own cost. This includes those who have traveled through these countries in the last 14 days. Foreign citizens will be required to quarantine at places designated by the government, while returning residents will be allowed to isolate themselves at home. The government is urging all residents and visitors to observe disease prevention measures like improving hand hygiene, physical distancing, and wearing face masks. Tanzania's president announced plans to set up a national COVID-19 task force to inform a new state response to the pandemic in March. The task force will, among other things, advise the government on public health measures against the COVID-19 virus and how to communicate them to the public. Daniel Kejo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Here in Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta has held bilateral talks with his Tanzanian counterpart, Samia Suluhu Hassan. Kenya and Tanzania are working to deepen trade cooperation. CGTN's Daniel Arap Moi reports.
Kenya and Tanzania have committed to re-establishing a joint commission on cooperation. The commission aims to resolve sticking issues between the two neighbors.
We have agreed to re-energize the Joint Commission of Cooperation between our countries. Our ministers have been instructed to meet regularly to ensure that they are able to resolve small issues that crop up between the citizens of our two nations.
Trade relations between the two countries have been frosty in the recent past. Tanzania and Kenya have had a spat over tariffs and non-tariff barriers on goods. President Hassan's visit is expected to address these key issues. The two leaders agreed to tackle COVID-19 protocols at the border points as one way of easing cross-border trade.
The other thing that the president has emphasized that I also agree with is for our health ministers to meet and discuss how to simplify the process of cross-border checks for coronavirus so that our people get speedy services and ensure business moves swiftly.
The two leaders also agreed to construct a gas pipeline running from Dar es Salaam to the port of Mombasa. The renewed and constructive relationship between Kenya and Tanzania is expected to go a long way in further strengthening the already existing diplomatic ties. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
The European Union says it will not observe Ethiopia's parliamentary elections slated for June 5th this year. In a statement, the EU has explained that it has cancelled the deployment of an observation mission to the country because of what it says has been a failure to agree with Ethiopian authorities on key requirements for the deployment. Coletta Wanjohi reports from Addis Ababa.
The European Union says Ethiopia has refused to allow independence of its observer mission and has blocked it from importing communication systems that its team may need. The bloc has supported Ethiopia's National Electoral Board with 20 million euros to prepare the elections. It says the equipment is vital, especially for security of the mission when traversing through harsh environments. The Ethiopian government is yet to comment on the decision by the EU. Some citizens say Ethiopia is a sovereign state and deserves the right to give restrictions to foreign missions, while others feel that failure of the European Union to be an observer will dent the credibility of the electoral process. In the June polls, Ethiopia will elect the party that will govern for the next 5 years. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is seeking an official mandate for his own party, the Prosperity Party, to end the transition period he is in. He took over from former Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn, who stepped down after serving 2 years of his term. Voter registration is still ongoing, with the Electoral Board reporting slow progress in areas affected by conflict. In 2015, the African Union was the only international mission permitted to observe Ethiopia's parliamentary elections. Coletta Njohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
It's 10 minutes into the hour. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a quick break. Straight ahead. Surviving climate change, we take you to the Kenyan coastline where efforts are on to save critical mangrove forests.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
I've been Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Egypt's parliament has passed a law that increases penalties and jail sentences for people found guilty of bullying people with disabilities. Violators will now face at least 2 years in jail and could pay up to $13,000 in fines. The move has been welcomed by Egyptian human rights groups and people living with disabilities. Here's Adel Mahri with more details.
The Egyptian parliament has recently passed a series of laws which aim to protect the most vulnerable members of society. People with disabilities are the latest beneficiaries of such legal changes after parliament imposed tougher penalties on anyone found guilty of bullying them.
The least I face is getting mocked about my disability when there's an argument with someone. I got divorced because all my husband's family demean my disability. They stood against the marriage at first because of my condition. They talked to the whole neighborhood about that. That was very hurtful. I will never forget that. Till date, they threaten me because I am a person with disability and they think I cannot react.
The new legislation has increased financial penalties against those found bullying people with disabilities by 5 times. Fines could reach up to nearly $13,000. Perpetrators also face a minimum of 2 years in jail. Serial offenders in bullying will face double the usual penalties. Those found guilty of engaging in group bullying also face tougher punishment.
I used to keep quiet when I got bullied in the street. What else can I do? I hope this law will be seriously enforced because I will now chase my legal rights. In the past, we didn't have such a right.
The new Egyptian legislation protects people with disabilities from strangers and anyone who has legal authority over them, like a parent, guardian, or a government employee.
The law used to describe a person with disability as anyone who cannot work, not even with the assistance of others. That was torture to us because we did not fit that criteria. The new law is excellent, but there is still a lot of work to be done. In public offices, employees still bully us. They make it hard for us to get public services. This mindset needs to change.
I raised 3 kids. I'm a trader. I sew very well. And I do some interior design work. People don't see that. They only see my condition.
The definition of bullying has also been expanded to include the display of force, attempt to control, abuse someone's weakness, as well as mocking and demeaning a person with disability. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Turkana County in Kenya's northwest is one of the country's poorest regions, but one organization is hoping to change this through education. Startup Lions Assets Kenya has put up a campus on the banks of Lake Turkana where students are learning information and communication technologies. The campus, designed by world-renowned architect Francis Kere, draws inspiration from the towering mounds built by termite colonies in the region. Here's CGTN's Wulkis Tanyabwa with that story.
A special graduation ceremony is taking place in Turkana. 30 students at the Startup Lions Assets Kenya will be marking the end of their course. It is the culmination of years' worth of hopes and aspirations now brought to life. The Startup Lions Asset Kenya Turkana campus is a striking sight in the desert. It reaches into the sky, all at once standing out while also blending perfectly with its environment. Brisanwere co-founded the institution with his German partner. Turkana is a place of immense beauty, but opportunities are limited.
We wanted to come up with a solution that will meet the needs of such a challenging region, a region where there is no agriculture, where job opportunities are not available, just a desert.
So in 2014, their non-profit organization started the institution where students could come and acquire information technology skills.
Our model is we train young people from this region with high-end digital skills so that they can be able to start selling digital products. We provide them a space, a desk, internet, electricity, accommodation, so that they are able to work comfortably.
When they shared their dream with Berlin-based architect Francis Kerr, he agreed to design the buildings at no cost. Kerr is known for taking into account the background and context of the buildings he designs, and this was no different. The buildings mimic the termite mounds that are common here, the large windows providing ventilation, while solar panels power the campus.
And inside the entities, we have very hard-working people, and that is the motivation.
Since 2014, over 270 students have passed through the institution, leaving with valuable skills. 15 students from the Kakuma refugee camp were among the graduates in the most recent graduation ceremony.
Back in the camp, I had that dream and that urge for learning the ICT.
I have gained the knowledge. I'm able to do things like you can even make a website.
There are plans to add more buildings, and so the termite mounds take shape, with locals working round the clock like a colony of ants to change the outcomes for youth in this desert. Bulkisanyabo, CGTN.
To a series on surviving climate change. Today, we head to Kenya, where mangrove forests are considered guardians of the coastline. These trees stabilize the coastline by reducing erosion from storm surges and tides. Mangroves also play an important role in fighting climate change. In today's episode of Surviving Climate Change, CGTN takes a look at mangrove conservation along Kenya's eastern coast.
If we are to imagine a situation without the mangroves, that would mean there will be more cases of global warming because there will be a high amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Another situation without the mangroves is Gazi being known as a community that is highly dependent on the fishery sector, then that would mean there will be a reduced productivity in the amount of fish that is caught, which will in turn greatly affect the livelihoods of the local communities. My name is Rahma Rashid Kivugo. I am 24 years old. I currently work with the Mikoko Pamoja Community Organization, which is the first community-led project in the world to engage in the sale of mangrove carbon credits. So basically, the project is located in the southern coast of Kenya, that is in Gazi Bay. We started working as a project in the year 2013. So basically, what Mikoko Pamoja does is conserve and protect the mangrove ecosystems. We work with two communities, that is the Gazi and the Makongeni communities. These are small villages constituting of about 6,000 people. Mangroves are known to be the third most productive ecosystems after the seagrasses and the salt marshes. They usually aid in the absorption of CO2 and other related greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. They're known to sequester or absorb up to 8 times more than other terrestrial ecosystems or other terrestrial forests. One, they are a habitat for the different marine species available in the ocean. They're also responsible for acting as a natural wall that shields the coastline against cyclones or flooding and all that. They're also known to serve as a protecting ground for the young fish against the predator fish. Generally, I can say that they have both ecological and economic economic benefits that they bring to the people around them or the biodiversity around it.
We have many types of the mangroves, but there are some which are best for the sucking of the carbon. Like this one I'm showing you, this is the best one, which sucks the carbon 5 times than any other tree, this type of mangrove here. And this is the type also we have to find the seedlings and we plant them there in the nursery. After some months, we take them away again. We're going to plant them in the other gardens there. But the challenge is when you plant 4,000 of them, may remain about 1,000, 1,500 because some die, some go with the water. That is the challenges. Because the seed of this is just like this thing here. The seed of like this, just like this. When it drops down, when it drops down, when it is stuck there, then it keeps growing already. It's like that, just like this one. When it drops, but when it drops like that, it stands still. It's already growing in. When we sell the carbon to Plan Vivo, they do their calculation and they bring us for money. I think what we got, because for the first time when we received this money, it is when we knew that, we used to cut the mangroves, we spoiled them for the firewood and for the building the houses, but now we can get money and we can decide to do our things. That is the day which I won't forget. We have improved because now the mangroves are, even the acres we had before, there are now many of the mangroves which are growing up. Because now it's about 3 years we were closed down, no cutting, no anything from the central government. So it's nice for us because the acres which we keep them, they're now doing very well. And when we're going for monitoring there, we go for checking there, I think things are not bad. I think some years coming, the forest of mangrove will be very big. And that is why every year we have to plant some more mangroves.
Basically, mangroves are usually degraded by both natural and human-induced factors. By natural factors, we're speaking of the climatic changes. So through the global warming, we tend to notice an increased rise in the sea level. How this affects the mangroves is that when the soil comes in, it tends to suffocate the mangroves, and in that way, these trees cannot breathe, or these trees cannot obtain the nutrients that they need for survival. What previously existed was a situation where a lot of mangroves were being cut down by the communities to provide for timber and firewood needs. This led to the destruction of huge acres of mangroves. We can have an example here. This is an example of a mangrove that was previously cut down. So what usually happens is the previously cut down trees do not regenerate. Once you cut them down, they hardly come back to life. So what we do as a project is come back in to replace the exploited trees, the degraded trees. This is one of the areas that was previously degraded. It was very much degraded to an extent where there were no mangroves in this area. So what Mikoko Pamoja has been able to do is like replant the lost mangroves over the years. We do it every year. We are supposed to plant 4,000 seedlings in a year. Over the years, we've been able to observe a reduced rate in the exploitation of the mangroves by the local communities. This is because they've been able to realize the benefits that come along with the conservation or protection of these ecosystems in terms of increasing the productivity of the fisheries sector. The first people to notice the benefits of the mangrove ecosystems were the fishermen in this village, because after long-term destruction of the mangroves, they noticed a decline in the amount of fish. So at that time, it was pretty easy to convince them that they need to protect this ecosystem for their own benefit, which was going to contribute to their livelihoods.
Mangrove are one of the most threatened natural ecosystems, and I can see that between 1990s and 2000, the loss of mangroves was 1 to 2%, and if the degradation was continuing in that rate, there could have been no mangrove in the next 100 years. The cost of doing nothing means we shall continue losing mangrove. And when we lose mangrove, we shall have effect on fisheries. There'll be no fish, there'll be no harvestable wood, there'll be a lot of, the most significant part is the sea level will rise. So it will lead to destruction of properties and life. And also, critically, there'll be the increased carbon emission, and which is really the major concern now under Paris Agreement. We are the first country on earth to sustainably manage, protect mangroves, restore them by using carbon credits. And that project, Mikoko Pamoja, it's well known, is the first one which is led by the community, where the community are paid to protect their mangrove through the sale of carbon credit. So the credits that they sell, they are able to plow back and support water and sanitation, education, health, and also plant more mangrove. So that project is one of our innovative ones here in Kenya. Another part we have really worked very hard is we are trying to include mangrove in the climate change agenda, the nationally determined contribution. If that is done, we shall be able to accelerate our achievement of Paris Agreement and on the SDG.
So today we'll be having a monitoring activity. This is usually done thrice in a year. This is the third and final one this year. So basically what we'll be having today is dividing ourselves into the different groups. That is 3 groups of 7 members each, and then move forward to the plots, have a brief training with the community, and go ahead with the entire monitoring activity.
We are monitoring a number of plots, so we are running transects from the sea towards the land. So here we are doing a transect. So we identify one tree, we mark the tree. That is our origin, that's our tree number 0. So we do a plot, a 10 by 10 square plot. Then within the plot, we count the species of mangroves within the plot. We measure the diameter at breast height for the different species. Then we also, within the plot, we also check the young juvenile trees. Then we also want to check if within the plot there are any trees that have been cut. Then once we do that, we'll be able to capture everything within the plot, then we move on to the next one. So that in our analysis we'll be able to tell the larger area based on the different samples that we've collected. Yeah.
Okay.
So, as a scientist with Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute, we are coming in today to support the community and the Mikoko Pamoja organization to actually monitor their forest. So we are bringing in the technical expertise to make sure everything is being done according to book and they're following the laid down procedures and the laid down principles so that they can actually sell their carbon credit in the market without any issue. Yeah, and with time actually transfer this knowledge to the community so that over time they can actually be doing it on their own without our input. Today was interesting. From our observations, everything looks nominal. From the forest, we're seeing a lot of regeneration, which is good, which is a very good sign. But also on the other hand, we observed a number of stumps, so which clearly shows that there's some leakage coming from the forest. Basically, people are extracting wood from the forest. It's very minimal, but it's also interesting to note the areas so that we can actually improve surveillance. But so far, everything looks very, very good.
My name is Matimi Amadi. I am the tour guide from the Gazi Women. It's an ecotourism venture. Today we are celebrating about the launching on phase 1. We expect to get more visitors, local and foreign tourists. They come here to learn about the species of the mangrove and also the learning about the bird watching. It's about my family because my family, I am the one who I take care for anything. So I struggle myself to do better tour guiding so that I can get money to help my family.
I mean, there's the uniqueness of the mangroves, and there's also the benefit, the whole benefit that they bring to the universe. So a small effort in terms of conserving them or protecting them doesn't just only benefit the local communities, it benefits the whole globe. You're able to support the existence of life, not just the human life, but also the life of the other marine organisms that are located basically in the ocean too. I think it's essential for us to involve the younger generation in the conservation of these ecosystems, but more awareness is definitely needed out there. This should be a continuous process that only the younger generation will achieve in due time.
We need to live in harmony with nature. Nature will make us survive as humanity. We cannot distinguish, we cannot separate ourselves from nature. You have seen what COVID has done with all this restricted movement, with all this social distancing, the healing. For us to heal post-COVID, we shall heal because of natural ecosystems that are healthy and they are productive. So for my next generation, they need to understand the role of natural capital, which is the natural ecosystem, in climate change mitigation and sustainable development.
This is Africa Live. Let's now catch up with the day's business news, and for that we cross over to Uche for the latest.
Thank you, Peninah. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. South African motorists looking forward to a fuel price drop boosted by a stronger rand. And a Kenyan innovator creates a hydropower plant from scrap material.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN. And we begin in South Africa. Motorists can expect a breather in May from the series of fuel price increases introduced earlier in the year. And that, of course, was due to a stronger rand. Now, according to the Automobile Association, petrol is expected to be about 13 cents per litre cheaper, with diesel showing a 32 cents per litre drop. Here's CGTN's Angelo Coppola with the details.
It was definitely good news for long-suffering motorists in South Africa.
Coming off the back of very significant increases where we saw the fuel price in South Africa reaching record highs, 17 Rand 32 inland for a litre of fuel. So these cuts are certainly going to be welcome, and I think a lot of motorists and consumers generally are going to be very happy that it's not another increase.
The impact of the price cuts on the economy remains to be seen.
Obviously, the concern now is what's going to happen with the fuel price in the next couple of months. And because it's based largely on the two factors of the international petroleum prices and the Rand US dollar exchange rate, which are both volatile, it's difficult to predict what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, let alone the next 2 or 3 months. So it may falter in if there's another decrease. That's something that we obviously would like to see. It all depends on the stability of the Rand and what international product prices do.
South African consumers have to face another reality as 2 of the country's 4 oil refineries are not working due to fire damage. Operations at the other 2 refineries are under review.
Look, I think that it is becoming more of a problem. We're importing quite a lot of fuel at the moment, and obviously there's an import parity pricing that's at play, so motorists will feel that to a certain extent.
The country's fuel price per litre is made up of several components, including refining capacity, something that the Automobile Association wants reviewed.
I think what we'd like to see in South Africa is a complete revision of the basic fuel price calculations and audit of all the elements that are in those calculations to ensure that they are necessary and need to be there.
While motorists are happy about having to pay less per litre of petrol than they were last month, those who use vehicles to transport goods and services aren't going to pass that benefit on to the consumer just yet. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, Kenya's government has promised that by 2030, most Kenyans will be connected to the country's power grid. But as many people, especially in villages, continue to hope that this goal will be achieved, one man in Muranga County has already connected thousands to electricity that he generates using a power plant, which he created using scrap material. Here's CGTN's Enoch Sikolia with his story.
This is John Magiro from Muranga County. It's evening time and he's doing a routine check on his power line at Njumbi Market. He owns a mini hydro power plant that supplies electricity for security lights here, free of charge. His story began more than 10 years ago. Life was so difficult then, as his village had no access to electricity.
The community, they were using mainly the paraffin, and also the Kenya power, it was not allowed.
He was inspired to do this after observing his brother's bicycle dynamo that generated light when the wheel turned. From there, John Magiro was able to build a power plant at these falls along River Ngondo using scrap metals and a bigger dynamo. His concept was very simple. Use the power of water to turn a dynamo, generating electricity. He has been upgrading the power plant since the National Environmental Trust Fund came on board. Instead of a dynamo, he now uses turbines.
One thing about Magiro is that it's quite reliable. The power is always available. The guy is there to make sure that whenever there are issues, they are being sorted very fast.
Water at high speed and pressure is what turns turbines. Using trees, stones and concrete, Magiro redirected water from River Ngondo, creating a water reservoir.
Also, the reservoir make the head of the hydropower to be a bit higher.
Now, when water runs through this giant pipe, it gathers pace and gains pressure. As it passes through turbine runners located in the power station, each runner rotates, producing mechanical energy. It's then passed through an electrical generator, which is connected on a shaft. This is how Magiro Hydro Power Station is converting water's potential energy into electrical energy, ready for distribution.
The time that I was using the bicycle dynamo, it was generating around 0.5 watts. But right now, the kilowatt that you are generating in Kahedwine, you are generating around 25 kilowatts. After that, in Kiawabogo, you are generating around 18, and also Gitoko, you are generating 10. So all the power that you are generating in Kiawabogo and Gitoko, they are synchronized in Kahedwine.
The impact of electricity supply on this village has been huge. John Kinywa operates a shop at Njumbi Shopping Center. He says Magiro Power has helped his business a great deal.
I use it for lighting my shop, power my radio, phone, and weighing machine. It doesn't have many power blackouts.
Currently, over 650 households in Magiro's village are connected to his power plant, but the 28-year-old is planning to expand and connect even more villages to his power grid. Enoxikolia, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
And on the international front, the European Union plans to ease international travel restrictions next month. It is hoping to boost tourism after a year of restrictions. Now, Brussels has put forward a proposal that will give the green light to fully vaccinated people and countries with the virus under control. Here's CGTN's Tony Waterman reporting.
This wouldn't be a blanket reopening. It would be limited to countries that have their COVID-19 situations under control, which is being defined as 100 cases per 100,000 inhabitants or less. So right now, the UK and Russia would make the cut, but the US would not. The welcome would also be extended to people who have been fully vaccinated, but they have to be fully vaccinated with an EU-approved jab. This could be extended to include WHO-approved vaccines, but both of those lists right now do not include Russia's Sputnik V or China's Sinopharm and Sinovac jabs. This proposal is also not a substitute for entry requirements, so travelers may still have to show a negative COVID-19 test or quarantine upon entry. That is going to be a decision left up to each individual member state, but an EU official saying testing would likely be kept in place for the foreseeable future. The plan also comes equipped with an emergency brake, which would halt arrivals from countries where serious variants emerge. The timing of this, of course, is no mere coincidence. Europe is heading into the very lucrative summer season when many businesses make the bulk of their yearly income, especially in the south, so countries like Italy, Spain, and Greece. But the tourism industry across the bloc has really suffered during this pandemic, losing out on tens of billions of dollars since Europe's borders were essentially closed to outsiders in March of 2020. But now that global vaccination programs are picking up pace, at least in the developed world, Brussels feels that the economic benefits of reopening outweigh the potential risks. The plan now needs to be adopted by the Council, which is expected to happen by the end of this month, so the welcome mat could be rolled out as soon as early June. Tony Waterman, CGTN, Brussels.
Meanwhile, China's domestic travel surged over the Labor Day holiday after coronavirus restrictions were eased, especially after the Lunar New Year festival in February. Now, figures from Chinese online travel company Trip.com showed hotel bookings rose about 43% in this 5-day period, and that's compared to 2019. Reservations for scenic spots surged 114%. Well, Wei Ling Tang tells us now what sentiments are like on the ground.
Shanghai remains one of China's top travel destinations over the Labor Day holiday.
throngs of people flock to picturesque sites such as the Bund and the shopping haven at Nanjing Road.
I'm from the central province of Henan. In the past 2 days in Shanghai, we've been to the Oriental Pearl Tower and the Bund. It feels good being in a big city. We hail from a small city after all. It's also our first time traveling long distance since the pandemic.
I'm over 80 years old and haven't gone out much to explore the world. This is my first time taking a flight to travel. I feel really happy.
The impact on the hospitality industry is evident. Domestic hotel giant Huazhu Group says it's reporting growth that's almost back to pre-epidemic levels.
As of April 29th, we have seen a 15% growth in the May Day holiday bookings for all of our 6,700 hotels in China compared to that of 2019. It's also 10% higher than the tomb sweeping holiday a month ago. In March of this year, our revenues per available room have recovered to 95% of the same period in 2019. April's recovery was stronger, driven by business travelers.
China's recovery from the COVID-19 epidemic has been a shot in the arm for domestic tourism. Hotels are seeing bookings back to pre-COVID levels or exceeding them in some cases. But some may wonder if this is merely pent-up demand and whether this trajectory can actually last.
Global hotel chain IHG believes there are solid fundamentals backing up the recovery. And it's not just because consumption in 2020 has bottomed out and the only way is up.
If you move on to this next 5 years, you'll notice the government has said the next 5 years income increase will be in line with GDP growth. That is a huge, huge news, because GDP growth we talk about, it will be over 6% on average, which means from next year on, Chinese purchasing power, consumption power will be very much improved. The key thing is after 2021, 2022, we will see consumption fly.
Across China, the broken bridge in the West Lake of Hangzhou and Beijing's Badaling section of the Great Wall are just some of the famous spots which have seen an overflow of tourists. Hospitality players are optimistic that large-scale conferences and exhibitions in the next few months will continue to drive the industry's recovery. Wei Lin Tang, CGTN, Shanghai.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up later on Global Business Africa, we'll be looking at what to expect from Tanzanian President's 2-day visit to Kenya. Of course, all that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you, Farida.
Thank you, Uche. You're watching Africa Live. Coming up in sports. Former head of global athletics Lamine Diack cleared to return home in Senegal after 6 years in France.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference. How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find